Shannon, and today I have another book tag video to share with you guys. My friend Chloe did this tag on her channel. Her channel is Always Booked. She did this tag months ago, and I made a mental note at the time when I watched it. You know, like, oh, I want to do that tag as well. But you know how it goes. The weeks get away from you sometimes. Here we are months later, and we're finally going to film it. So I will put a link to Chloe's video in the description box if you want to go and check her out, which you should. She's a wonderful person. I love her book videos. She does a ton of them. She puts out a lot of content. So if you love books, I think you'll love Chloe. So let's just get on into it. This is the Nope Trope book tag, all the questions, and there aren't a ton. This should be a fairly quick video, are about book tropes, just book questions in general. So let's get on into it. Question number 1, eavesdropping with miscommunication. Name a book you heard great things about and expected to love, but ended up hating. This one's easy. Now, hating is a strong word. I wouldn't say I hated this book, but I definitely did not love it. And so many people seemed to just go crazy for it. And that is Eleanor Oliphant Is Completely Fine. Maybe it's because there was so much hype around it that I went into it thinking I was going to absolutely love it. I actually read this on a flight back from Dublin, Ireland to Edmonton, Alberta. I bought it in the airport in Dublin, and I dove into it on the flight home, and it just didn't do it for me. I found it really predictable, really full of cliches, and I called the ending from a mile away. And so I was really disappointed in that because I had thought I was going to love it. Question number 2, love triangles. Name a series where you can't pick your favorite book. Now, I must say that as an adult, I don't really read a ton of series. Most of the books that I read are just standalones. Sometimes there'll be one with a sequel. But as for series, as for books in a series, I don't really read a ton, but I think one that I would pick that I read with my daughter when she was younger, the Harry Potter series, they were all great. It'd be hard for me to pick a favorite. Or the Chronicles of Narnia that I read when I was young. I loved those so much, and I loved them all so much. Whereas some of the other series that I read when I was a kid, like the Anne of Green Gables, the first one's by far my favorite, so that's an easy one to pick. But I would think the Chronicles of Narnia. I loved all of those. Question number 3, not like other girls / didn't know I'm beautiful. Name a book that has a pretty cover but was boring as hell. I have to give that answer as Norse Mythology from Neil Gaiman. I love Neil. I think he's a fantastic author. I really, really enjoy almost all of his books, but this one I found really boring. It's an interesting premise. I know a lot of people loved it. I just wasn't one of them. But that cover is stunning. It's even more stunning in person because there's a bit of color shift, and it's just gorgeous. But the book just wasn't for me. Number 4, all-consuming love. Name a book that gave you a book hangover. So many give me book hangovers, and to me that means, you know, you're reading it, you love it, and then, at least this is how I interpret that question. You're reading it, you love it, and then when you're done, you're just kind of like spent from it. Maybe I'm interpreting that wrong, but that's how I'm going to interpret it. And for me, that would be My Dark Vanessa. I love that book. It's very dark, it's very heavy, but I couldn't put it down. I would read through the night to finish it. I could not stop. It was so good. By the time I was done, I was spent, emotionally drained. It was so good. But like I said, it was so heavy, and I loved it. I definitely got it. Another book which kind of gave me the same sort of feelings, that like heavy emotional feelings that just leaves you completely drained even though you loved it, would probably be The Great Alone by Kristen Hanna. She's a fantastic author, and that book has to be, I think, my favorite that she's written. I also love The Nightingale so much, but The Great Alone, that just really, really affected me. Loved that. Number 5, Douchebag Boyfriend. Name a book that took you a while to get into, but you ended up loving. There have been quite a few. And it's funny, when I finish a book that took me a while to get into, but I ended up loving, I just stop and think, like, wow, I could have given up on that. That's why when people talk about books they didn't finish, it's very rare that I won't finish a book, because I have had so many instances that books were incredibly hard to get into, but once I did, I ended up loving them so much. Ask Again Yes was a recent one. One would be The Great Alone, like I just mentioned. That one sat on my bookshelf for a long time, because every time I'd pick it up and read the first couple of pages, I'd put it aside. I'd say, okay, I'll come back to that later. It just didn't grab me right off the bat. But again, like I just mentioned, that's one of my all-time favorites. Another one would be The Outsider by Stephen King. For whatever reason, that one took me a little while to get into, but once I did, I loved it. So for me, that's an occurrence that happens frequently enough that it keeps me from DNF, like did not finishing, because I keep thinking, what if you would love it and you're just not giving it enough of a shot? So I've got a few sitting on my shelf that I'm in that position with, that I've started and put down, that I need to get back to very soon, because I know some of them I'm gonna love. So we're gonna get to those very soon. Number 6 is tell us your favorite or least favorite tropes. So let's see, well, I'm gonna tell you both, my favorite and least favorite. So some of my favorites include when someone goes back home to their small town after having been away. I love like coming home stories. Coming home to maybe a family that you haven't seen in a long time, and the last time you saw them there was tension. I just love those coming home stories. And just family dysfunction in general. Love it in a book. I also love sort of enemies to lovers. I love that. I love that. I know a lot of people like the friends to lovers. I prefer enemies to lovers. And then maybe back to enemies afterwards. I don't know. But I do love that. Tropes that I don't love sort of the chosen one tropes. Even though like I said, I read Harry Potter to my daughter when she was younger, and I did love that, and that of course is a sort of chosen one. Or not sort of, definitely a chosen one trope, but I liked it in that. But in general, I don't love it. I also don't love the damsel in distress trope very much. I prefer strong female characters who, if they have a man, it's because they want one. They don't need to be saved. They don't need to be rescued. I love that. Yeah, so those are kind of my favorite and least favorite tropes. And that's it. Like I said, this was just a quick little tag video that I saw months ago and knew I wanted to do too. So once again, check out Chloe's video. I hope you guys are having a great week and that you're staying warm. It is still very cold here. Very, very cold. We're in the -40s. Celsius. Earlier in the week it went down to -54. That's a bit dramatic, Mother Nature. I mean, there's no need for it. Anyway, I will see you guys again real soon with another book talk and then some more chapters from Pride and Prejudice. Bye guys.